I was happy for established people to hate me because I was like, screw you, what does it matter to me? But your audience is going to love me.
You ban certain countries from your email list. And you also say that most people who don't speak English as a first language should just forget it.
I'm going to break through the dream bubble and say what no one else will say to you because it's politically incorrect. You cannot be a copywriter. You can't write. You're illiterate.
Do you laugh a lot while you write your copy?
Absolutely. I'm laughing all the time when I write my emails. Definitely, I have always thought of having a duty to entertain them. Well, because if you take someone's attention for granted and you abuse it, they won't give it to you anymore. People tune out. You get boring to people. And so I have to show up and be interesting enough to hold someone's attention. And so the idea of getting copy out of AI, I can't even believe that's normal.
Yeah, I can totally agree with this.
If I expect them to show up with the attention to read it, why would they be okay if I didn't put in the effort to write it? Otherwise, I'm demanding their attention for free. That's disrespectful.
How do you activate that next level of skill? Like, it's not always another technique. What do you think?
The thing that took me to being world class was knowing that it takes a lot of energy, it takes a commitment to do it, and you have to enjoy it. It's shocking to me how many people seem to have no conception of this based on the copy they write. It's not sexy, which is why people aren't going to do it. But I just don't see how you can develop the skills to be really good if you're not doing it. It's that simple. And frankly, if you don't like, why are you a copywriter like in the first place? Ultimately, that's what copywriting is all about. If I can sum it up this elegantly, that the single biggest predictor of how well you can write copy is how well you know.
So today I'm here with Daniel Throssell. Thanks for joining me, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Australia's best copywriter. You've created quite a brand, for yourself. You got all these, got Australia's. I think you're very, very good. And I always read your emails, and I'm always laughing at your copy. And you've got this, and then you've got, your anime character like version of yourself where you're punching things and you're getting rid of gurus, and like you've got all kinds of things going on in your brand, and it's just so fresh in our space, especially with so many copywriters out there, trying to create a unique voice for themselves. So yeah, I'm looking forward to our chat today and seeing, what else I can learn from you, man.
We're going to do it in Japanese?
Oh, no, not yet, bro, not yet. But you know what was interesting is that when I was reading your emails for the first time, like quite a few years ago, and you started adding like a few lines of Japanese, to a few of the emails, and you were explaining a few things. And I was like, no, I know this guy's done AJAT. You can just tell, like, he's studied Japanese all day, every day, and at some point, how did you decide to do that? Like, get into Japanese? Was that something you always wanted to learn?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about AJAT, so I'll just show you, like, my phone's in Japanese. It always has been,
There's Anki as well.
Computers. Oh, yes. Computers in Japanese. Look, my aunt showed me, she was an English teacher in Japan. When I was a kid, she gave me this little hiragana chart. She'd bring me little Japanese toys. And so I just always had this childhood interest in it. When I went into high school, in Australia, the languages you study are different, geographic reasons. So my school had Chinese or Japanese. And because of my childhood association with that, I picked Japanese. And so I studied it in high school for 5 years, went into university, tried to keep studying it there, and it was just way too hard. I sucked. So it kind of atrophied, and I picked it back up in 2015 and kind of retaught it to myself. I'd forgotten even the hiragana, so I had to learn it all from scratch. And yeah, that's when AJAT came in. So I was a huge fan of AJAT. It was just a huge passion of mine for so many years. So yeah, it's a massive hobby, and obviously you can see all the merch in the background from many trips to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
There are probably tens of thousands of dollars. I had to do my home insurance, update it the other day.
Oh, no.
And,
it got added to the home insurance.
Out. Like, I'm looking at all the plushies, and there's literally thousands of dollars worth of Japanese plushies. And because like each one was like, at least $15, and I've got literally hundreds of them. So I was like, man, I wonder if this is actually, I don't think the insurance company is going to pay that out. They're like, $5,000 worth of Japanese plushies? What does that mean? It's like, you don't have no idea how hard it is to get them. So yeah, big Japanese fan.
That's your number one secret.
What's
to writing copy? Yeah, it's your number one secret, is all these different interests and things that, come together with writing. You've started your list a lot later than actually quite a few other people that I started following. And I actually only realized this recently because when I first started, which was around 2017, I kind of did nothing for a few years to try break into the industry. I was kind of outside. But around 2019, I was in a couple of good accounts, a couple of BizOp, coaching accounts, writing copy. And like early 2020, then I think that was around the time. It was somewhere there that people just started saying your name. And because I had sort of just broke into the space, I just assumed that, it was like something from a long time. But then I realized recently it's actually, that was almost like exactly when you started your list, right? It was like pretty much exactly that year.
March 2020 that I sent my first email. So yeah, there were a lot of people, most of the people who have brands today had them when I started. I was kind of a newcomer. And it's funny to me now that it's been 5 years and now everyone, speaks of me just by my surname, whatever. It's kind of weird to me because I was not used to that for a very, very long time. I just saw myself as kind of an up-and-comer underdog. And that positioning was more fun, honestly. I mean, now that kind of people know who I am, it's less fun. It was way more fun to just be an underdog and just stick my tongue out at everyone, win affiliate contests and be like, beat all the A-listers. But, now I've got like a bigger list than many of these people. There's no glory in it, So, yeah. I'm not going to complain. It's nice to have a bigger list, but it was fun being small.
Yeah, but like even back then, because they told me, they're like, you're gonna be on Throssell's list, you're gonna be on Daniel Throssell's list. So I was assuming that it was at the same time as everybody else, and I just don't know how you got into those big circles with those people talking about you early 2020. There's already people talking about you in like the deepest corners of Guru direct response, telling me to join your list. Like, how did you build that list so quickly and get all those people so quickly?
Yeah, look, I was very, very cognizant that that's what I wanted to do. And if I've done something better, like if I have a talent that, sorry, it's nearly summer here, like flies in my house for some reason. If I have a talent that other people don't have or something I'm particularly good at, it's personal brand building. And, I don't mean getting a Twitter account to 20,000 followers or something. That's what a lot of people mean, I guess. I got to clarify that. Most people think of that when you talk about personal brand building, but I mean like getting people to talk about you, without doing lots of tweets or whatever, but just by being clever and strategic with what I'm doing. That's always been something I've been really good at inadvertently online. And so it was a targeted focus of mine when I started. I was like, in 2020, when I started email, like people talk about Ben Settle, Chris Osakowski, Stefan Georgi, Justin Goff, like that's kind of the space that's going on there, the people who you got to follow. And I'm like, I want to be mentioned in the same breath as all those people. That's my goal when I'm starting. I'm like, I want people putting me in that list. And so I was very, very enterprising in terms of doing things to get my name in front of people. So I had a lot of stunts that I pulled. I would cause a fair bit of drama with people. One aspect of it was just, being good. I did affiliate contests with some people who were bigger than me, and I did really, really well just because I had my fundamentals down pat. I was really good at selling to my list, had really good offers. So that was one way of getting me on the list. I also had, my parallel welcome sequence, which you referred to earlier, like the creative way I welcome people into my world. And I came up with that in 2020. And so I used that as a big driver of getting people to talk about me. But it was just about coming up with clever and fun ideas and new ways of doing stuff, and very provocatively putting that in people's faces. Because, there are some people in the industry, they take themselves very seriously. They have a very high opinion of themselves. And it was a lot of fun for me to poke fun at those people and call them out. And, they would write about me and be like, who's this punk? And, all their people would check me out. So there were a lot of different things. But, being a troublemaker was definitely a big strategy for me in 2020.
It's interesting because there's a lot of ways that can go wrong, done wrong, and you've managed to, from my, my experience reading your emails and the people that I kind of surround myself with, everybody talks very well of you, even though you've been a bit of a troublemaker. And so I think there's something that you mentioned in one of your emails because you were talking about this when you were talking about one of the the programs that you have about how to build like celebrity presence over email and how to use that, like leverage that, being a troublemaker and kind of stirring and causing drama. Um, what is like the way that you would say, you want to think about that when you want to get that sort of negative attention in a way that kind of positively builds your brand?
Look, see, I wasn't trying to get negative attention so much in terms of I
Mm,
want everyone to hate me. The goal was I want the big players to not like me, but I want to be like the advocate that on the side of the audience. So I'm kind of tapping into that feeling that other copywriters might have had, like, it's unfair. There's this A-list and there's this class that I can't tap into. And then I come along as the representative of that class. And I'm like,
mm,
yeah, I'm not an A-lister either. They don't let me in their ivory towers. I'm just going to throw rocks from the outside with you guys. And so it's not about being hated by
yeah,
everyone, because that
yeah,
doesn't work very well. And you get that with some of the more TikTok kids who are just, posting about how much money they're making. They're just videos of them and with their rented cars and whatever crap they got. Everyone hates them. Okay. Everyone hates them. That's not the
yeah.
kind of brand I was going for. I was happy for established people to hate me because I was like, screw you. What does it matter to me? But your audience is going to love me. That's the difference that I was going for.
Mm,
So, I've always
yeah, interesting. Mm,
played more to the masses, but not the power brokers so much. And this was definitely a strategy in the early days for me. There's actually one of my sales letters, of course, called Campaign Conqueror, and it starts off, I think the lead is something like, how does this random Australian guy keep beating these world famous A-listers or something? Because that's the positioning I'm
that
talking
makes
about.
sense. Yeah.
That's
Mm,
the positioning. It's like, oh, I'm just a nobody, in 2020, nobody knows my name. And just like you, there's all these A-listers. They all talk about A-listers and they're so high and mighty and they're on a different level
mhm.
to the rest of us. Well, screw that. So I kind of tapped into that.
But like you're definitely playing into it and like leaning into it and being that when you actually do it. And I think that maybe is part of the thing I've noticed that makes like your copy stand out. When you do step into the character, you go all in to the character. You don't half act the character and just kind of state a few things. You actually demonstrate it in the copy. Whereas, yeah, many copywriters I've read copy from, they want to do something. They tell me that here's the intention, and I'm reading the copy, and it's like you're not actually going for it. You're saying you want to do that, but there's like a complete disconnect between what you're thinking and what's actually on the page.
Yeah, the hardest thing is to make somebody feel something because they have so much entertainment that they could pay attention to. They have so many things in their inbox. They subscribe to all the other copywriters, especially if we're talking copywriting. They have all the other copywriters doing their copywriting tricks on them. They've got so much to pay attention to, and it just will not do to show up half-heartedly and be anything less than amazing. And this is something that the kind of more legacy copywriting gurus, I guess I'll call them, who are just trading on old school success, have kind of, they're just used to people taking their name for granted and saying, I'm so and so, therefore I'm worth listening to, and they're really boring as a result. And so in an attention economy, that actually doesn't work so well. And so what I have done is I show up at a really, really high level for my audience. I don't phone anything in. And when I am showing up, I view my job as being the consummate entertainer. Like, that's my goal with the emails, is I am going to entertain the heck out of you. I'm going to make you feel something. So I do a podcast with John Carlton, and, that was something that I learned from him, which, he said that I'm doing very, very well, is making your marketing the one thing in their day that makes them feel something. That's an old school John Carlton teaching. And that's what I've applied to my emails. I want someone, when they see something from me, an email from me, they know they're going to feel something. And, I'm actually doing a promo today where I've got an email coming out in a few hours, which is going to lean exactly into what we're talking about. I wrote it just before getting on this call, and it's, it's literally the whole email is all caps. So, it's just like leaning into the entertainer, the crazy entertainer vibe. And I just like doing that kind of thing. You're showing up with energy and people are like, dude, you're freaking insane, but I love it. That's what I'm trying to do for people.
Do you laugh a lot while you write your copy?
Absolutely. I'm laughing all the time when I write my
Thought
emails. And
so.
my wife
Yeah.
always walks past and she's just seen me laughing and she's like, "You're laughing at one of your jokes." I'm like, "Yes, I am." Because that's what makes it funny. If I'm not laughing, they're not going to laugh. Yeah, there is a lot of laughing.
No, I think that when I have a good hook, it doesn't even matter if the actual writing is funny. Just the hook is like, oh, this is one hell of a sentence, I'm about to use on on this audience. I'm just laughing and laughing. So I think there's definitely energy transfers. I don't know how much you've learned from Matt Fury, but Matt Fury is a guy that I spent a lot of time learning from him. With some of my first clients, there was a lot of audio tapes that my client would send me, a lot of material from him, and one of the biggest things he was saying is there's like this energy transfer in good writing. There's this, it's not actually in the words. It's not like you can't just create this with editing. It's really in that energy that you bring to that first draft and the way that you're showing up to the copy. And that always stuck with me because I've always found that the best client work that I've done, because I've got a few emails, right? I send a few emails to my list, but the majority of the email copy I've written has been for clients. When I showed up to the client and I had that certain energy, it just transferred. I can feel, like I read the email, I can feel myself in there. There's a few emails even from 6 years ago I sometimes go back to and read it, and that's like nostalgic energy, just like listening to music. So yeah, I'm a big believer of the energy, but I think a lot of copywriters who want that, sometimes get lost in formulas and stuff that gurus have given them.
Yeah, look, I didn't learn directly from Matt Fury, but I've learned from two people who have been very influenced by him. So both Scott Pape and Ben Settle, who, I count as, along with John Carlton, are my biggest influences. Both of them were heavily influenced by Matt Fury. So there will be a lot of Matt Fury in my email DNA. And that is something that I completely agree on, bringing energy into your copy. And it's one thing I teach my students is that if you have a great deal, it's your duty to get excited about it when you write the copy. You can't write a truly passionate email if you don't feel that. And so one of the reasons a lot of my best emails and sales letters do so well, and they have that energy, is that I'm feeling that energy. I'm like, whoa, this deal is so good. I'm actually scared to make it, but I'm really excited to make it too. And that energy shows up in the copy. And, I mentioned that today I'm doing a big promo. I'm doing one of those deals. And so I am kind of living that energy. And like I mentioned to you before we went on air, I was like, do you mind if I pour myself a drink? Because I've been sitting there writing and it's very draining. Like I don't pre-write this stuff because you can't pre-write it and have it good. If we're talking about that energy transfer into the copy and through the copy, you have to sit there and actually experience it. And I actually have to sit there in my inbox and letting replies wash over me, getting inspiration, thinking about the deal, writing these words, and the muse will come on me. I'm like, oh yeah, I feel this email coming in. My fingers start flying. And it's really exhausting to do it because you are working with energy. It sounds woo-woo, but you are working with energy. Energy comes in ebbs and flows. And when it comes, you have to channel it. Sorry, whoops, just hit that mic, and put it through the words. And that leaves you really drained after you've done it really well. So, I'm a huge believer in that concept. Absolutely, that you have to bring that energy. And if you don't feel it, a lot of copywriters will try and just phone it in, and you can tell. It's like you're just trying to do what you think you're supposed to do. None of my best emails have ever been written off a template. And it's not because I'm so good, it's all in my head. It's that the template isn't helping. It's just I actually am putting my thoughts onto the page, and this is what's buzzing around in my head. And that's what people really vibe with. So it's definitely something, you can do so much better than an AI or a template when you show up with energy and put that onto the page.
Yeah, energy, man. It's such a big part of writing copy. And I think that it's hard because when you have lots of clients, I think especially these days, because client work has become an interesting thing. When I first started to feel like you could have 2 to 3 clients, that and make, decent money from 2 to 3 clients. But it's almost been this bit of inflation where most copywriters are not able or more comfortable working with 3, 4, 5 clients and just kind of have AI support them and push out work. And you have 5 clients. It's very difficult to have that sort of energy and also bring the inspiration and just bring everything to 5 different voices, especially if they're personal brands. It's like, how do you have 5 voices in your head at the same time and show up with the energy to deliver copy that really has love behind it? I don't think it's possible to do it with 5 clients. It's hard.
That is a very good point, because, for the last several years, all I've done is shown up for one brand, which is my own. I do know that, when I worked with clients, I couldn't do multiple projects at once. And I know there are some copywriters out there who actually liked having multiple things going on because it allowed them to change focus. It didn't really work well for me. I need to be immersed in what I'm doing. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's been a while since I have had to do that because I don't really enjoy writing for other people anyway. But yeah, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, well, I think the best email copy I wrote was when I just had one client. So, that tells me something too, right? It's like I had a client in 2019.
For me, I was in-house with the Barefoot Investor for a very long time, several years. And that was like, all I was doing was writing with him. And, I only had to go on deep on one voice. So I would agree. I did my best work like that as well. I've never liked the idea of spreading yourself thin with multiple clients. It's just too stressful.
But I think then that's the challenge though, right? For newer writers or for writers that have kind of joined the industry over the last few years, because they've all kind of been introduced to the craft with AI. And this is how you're supposed to do it. So they don't have that comparison where it's like, here's what it looks like if you just work for one brand and you just go all in. Their exposure is like, close 4 or 5 clients, kind of deliver 7 out of 10 copy that's decent enough to convert, and then go get the next client. That sort of seems to be, that's been my experience with a lot of the copywriters I've been working with privately. And they're doing pretty well. They're making decent money, but it's like, how do you activate that next level of skill? I often say, like, sometimes that next level is just more time invested into the writing. Like it's not always another technique. It's sometimes just sitting there with the same piece of copy for a few extra hours and really going through it again to see how you can make it better. What do you think?
Look, it's a foreign topic to me because I just don't deal with beginners. I've never catered my business to them, and I don't work with them. So it's something that you definitely be more on the front lines in that regard, because I'm not, helping people find their first client. Personally, I just don't think there's one approach that's going to work for everyone. And because of that, I'm like, I'm not going to try and come up with that approach, because your situation is going to depend on, the opportunities that are in front of you. I would say, though, the biggest thing that helped me was having mentorship under a copywriter who knew what he was doing. I got to work under Scott Pape, and he turned me from average into very good. From working for him, and every day I'd have to do things, and I failed constantly. Like even the copy I was writing for him at the end, I wouldn't say was very good, but he took me from very average but with a lot of potential, to someone who was quite good. And then after that, after having that mentorship, the thing that took me from there to being world class was then having responsibility for it myself with my own brand, showing up, writing my email every day. I've missed like 3 days in the last 5 years, probably. I haven't missed one for several years. And I ship work every day, and it has to be good work. I do not accept phoning it in to my list. And that having to show up and try and sell something, and have goals, like the emails have to build my brand. They have to sell people. They have to get engagement. I know if that's working or not. If I wake up the next day and there's no replies and no sales, I know that email didn't work. Okay. And I've sent literally thousands of emails to my list over that time. So that is a lot of feedback on what works and what doesn't. If an email comes back with a lot of replies, a lot of sales, I know it worked. If an email comes back with nothing, I know it didn't work. And so every single day I'm working really hard on something, and then I get the feedback on whether it works. And it really is just having put in the reps that's made the difference. Because even now, when I compare my current copy to what I was writing in 2020, when I started my list, I knew a lot, but I was nowhere near as good as I am now. And so that I haven't worked for any clients in the last 5 years. It's just all been me. So all of that improvement has just come from putting in the work and doing the reps. And it's why one thing I'm so big on with all the copywriters I talk to, and again, I'm not talking to beginners because my business isn't based around beginners, but I do say to the copywriters that I work with, like, you should have your own list, even if for no other reason, even if you're not trying to sell your own offers or products. It's your sandbox to find out what works. And that's how I know what works. That's how I know how to do what I do. If a client did come to me and ask me, what should I do to improve this welcome sequence, or this page isn't converting or whatever, the reason I would be able to answer that question is because I've done it in my own business. I've had to take responsibility for these things and figure them out and see what works. And so I'm just such a huge advocate. Like, it's funny to me to hear you talking about how the normal thing now is to use AI, because, you know, I did play around with AI just to try and see what's the deal with it, but I gave up on it several months ago. I actually did intend at the start of this year. I was like, okay, I'm gonna dedicate more time. You know, it could be really important, and I just canceled all my AI subscriptions and tools and everything. Like, except ChatGPT Plus or whatever it is. But you know, I just canceled everything because it was just not working for me. And so the idea of getting copy out of AI, I can't even believe that's normal. But because someone who thinks that's normal, I'm just like, you have no idea what you're missing out on, because it's the writing process that I've been through thousands of times, sitting there from a blank page and ending up with an email, and AI did not do any of the work in between. Like, that has had incalculable benefits on my ability to write copy and know what works. And I just think if you shortcut it, if you are putting in a prompt and getting out writing and just editing it, you are missing so much. And that there is something in the process that is so important to making good copy that you can't get, no matter how good you are at prompting. So I'm actually
what is that something?
Sorry?
What is that something in the process that just makes it?
If I knew, I would have the greatest course in the world, okay? Because then I'd be teaching what the magic is in the process. Because we all know mechanically what the process looks like. It involves sitting there at the screen and thinking and writing and deleting words. So it's not very sexy when you look at it, okay, what you see on the surface. It's something that happens inside you, okay? The forcing yourself to arrange your thoughts and wrestle with every word. And I know, I can feel when copy's not good. I can write something and think that's not right, okay? And I have to change that or delete it and rewrite it. When you prompt it, you're getting the copy out in one go. You know, you don't have to go through that to write all those words. So you're shortchanging those mental processes that are coming up with that copy. I don't exactly know how it works. It's a black box, really. But you do have to go through that writing process, I believe. It's not sexy, which is why people aren't going to do it. But I just don't see how you can develop the skills to be really good if you're not actually putting in the work of doing that and actually writing the words yourself.
Yeah, you bring a good point up, because it's like, if you skip that middle process, you know, the first draft is really where I find like all that energy comes into the writing, and like the whole idea and the whole everything that actually matters, all the real substance is in that first draft. And then you kind of take the words and you make them better and better reflect the actual thing that you wanted to say, right? I mean, that's how I usually write. I write the idea, write general idea. And then once I've written it all down, I don't usually make many edits while I write. I try not to. Sometimes I still do. But, you know, like, I'll write the whole thing, and then I'll go and edit those sections where I'm like, this is what I had in mind. When I'm reading this from the prospect's perspective, this section doesn't feel like it's actually what I wanted to say. Let me rewrite that, or let me rewrite this. But with AI, you just have that final version, and it's all dressed up already, and it all is like, seems like copy, looks like copy. You know, it's got the little direct response style sentences, and I mean, nowadays it's getting a little obvious, you know, it's like M dashes everywhere, and here's the kicker, and there's a couple of like obvious things. But the one that's been irritating me the most is, and then I can tell, I literally last week was reviewing a piece of copy with seven occasions in the piece of copy that said, it's not this, it's that. This sort of like...
I didn't realize that tell was still coming up. I thought they would have got that out in GPT-5. I haven't played enough
it's still there.
GPT-5. Okay, well...
It's still there, yeah. So it's like, you know, it's not this problem, it's this. And then it's like the next sentence was like, this is why you're not this, it's because that. And I was like, man, there's nothing in this copy. It's just empty words, you know? But I wanted to, before we go any further, I wanted to ask you how you show up with the energy that's required every day to do this for 5 years. Like, that's not easy.
Look, it's not easy. I don't know if I have a secret hack other than a commitment that I am going to do a good job. I don't know. It might be a personal thing, like a personality thing, because when I commit to doing something, I'm just going to do it. That's just the kind of person I am. You know, I learned Japanese, you know, and that was on a whim. One day in 2015, I was like, I regret that I forgot all my Japanese. I'm going to learn it back. And I just made that decision on a whim, and, you know, I'm fluent several years later. So that's not ordinary. Okay, most people aren't like that. So in one sense, it's hard for me to answer this question because I accept that maybe I'm not like most people. Maybe I just decide I'm going to do something and then I'm really intense about it. But I also think that there's a professional element to it. Like, people are like, oh, I just don't have energy to show up. And to me, it's not a question of whether I feel like doing it. It's like, when you think of someone like an actor or a comedian or an entertainer like that, their job is to show up and perform. They can't afford, when we're talking about high-level professionals here, they can't afford to say, oh, you know, I'm just not feeling it today. I'm canceling the show I'm doing tonight. They can't afford to do that. So there is a level of peak performance at which, when you are an entertainer, which, you know, I told you, I see my job as an entertainer, you just switch it on, even though you don't feel like it. And, you know, I think we have that in every kind of field of peak performance, you know, athletics and military, whatever it is. Every profession is able to develop a level at which, even if you don't feel like it, you can show up and channel it. And I've just applied that to writing. But maybe the helpful thing for other people is to understand that that's a perspective thing, that I recognized my writing is where I need to show up. And I think where a lot of people falter at this is they don't see it as a priority. They don't view their writing their own emails to a list, for example, as a high priority. It's something that will get done if I do these other things I want to do today. To me, it's been very, very different. And this was before I was making my income from emails. The commitment was that email is going to go out every day. And that was from 2020. I had that commitment. I wasn't making money from the list when I started that. And so there were nights I was here at this desk late. I wanted to go to sleep and no one was reading the freaking emails anyway. But I sat there and I said, I'm going to write the email and I'm not leaving this desk until it's done. And so while I may not be able to tell someone the secrets of peak performance, I can at least tell you it is a choice to decide to prioritize it. And maybe it comes from that. The decision that I am going to show up and do it leads to the development of capabilities that allow me to show up at such a high level every day. Because granted, now I am really good at it too. It takes less effort for me to show up and write a great email because I've done it so many times. But I had to show up and make the decision that it was important enough to show up and do it so that I could develop that ability. So that is, I say, where you have to start. You have to start by understanding how important it is and making the commitment that you are going to show up and keep doing it. And I know there are people, and it has always been the case and it always will be the case. They're always like, oh, I wish I'd started when you did. And it's like, yeah, you know what? So freaking what? When I started, I looked at everyone else and I was like, man, I wish I'd started when they did. But the only thing you can do is start. And I've seen people coming up the ranks, building their own brands over the past few years, you know, when people could arguably say, and people have been saying to me for years, oh, you know, I didn't get to start in 2020. It's now 2023. It's too late for me. Okay. There's always going to be a chance for you to start now and start building something for yourself. And in 5 years, you're going to regret not having done it.
Yeah, I can totally agree with this. I mean, you know, here you are on the podcast, you know, that's because I made a decision to not miss a single video and not miss a single publish for a year and a half. Like, didn't matter what happened. I would wake up, we were traveling, and I was tired, and, you know, the content didn't feel that strong. And I said, no, we're going to go and record a video now. You know, here we are in Shinjuku. Let's go and get that video. And I mean, as you know, in Japan, you know, I don't want meiwaku, you know, I don't want to like bother people and like get in front of the camera in the wrong place and kind of irritate people. So like being in Japan recording videos was a bit of a challenge for me because I didn't want to disrupt people. But I was like, okay, I gotta get this video out because this is what This is what I want to show people. And so we would take it retakes and retakes and retakes at the beginning of building the channel, just retakes for hours, and sit there and I rewrite the script, and then I'll say it, and then I like look at the camera and I just know like this doesn't sound authentic. This isn't really me. I'm like just saying the script versus, telling the audience something. But my videographer said something to me at the beginning of our work together, and he just said, this is the worst it's ever going to be. And I like that. I think it's a really great way to think about it, because it's like when you do start a personal brand, whether it's on email, like, you started your brand, or whether it's on video, or whether it's posting, or whether it's building something on LinkedIn, if you commit to it, that's the worst it's going to be. You're just going to get better and better, and you're going to find your groove, and you're going to find your voice. I've found my voice over the years as a writer, and there's a lot more I'm still learning about my voice, and like more places I'm exploring. Is like, what's my voice like in this sort of context and this context? But when it comes to writing emails for myself, it's quite easy now, because I know I know my voice, so I think that also takes off a lot of that effort. And then once you're in that voice or character, because there's a bit of a character to it too, right? It's like once you're in that character, then it starts to, the energy kind of shows up as well, right? So yeah, and I think the other thing with having a brand of your own, which is something that you don't get from client work, is that there's an additional level of accountability because your face is on the line. So it's like, I think it's a lot easier for you, right, as well, to show up every day for your list, because they're also expecting you to show up every single day. They're expecting to be entertained. So they're sitting there waiting. So you can't disappoint and, give them a half-ass email, because that's going to just, that's not the expectation that you've set with them. So there's that additional accountability. And each year your list grows, I guess, that accountability increases, right?
Yeah, I haven't thought of the accountability growing year by year. I mean, it's always been the same. I was showing up the same way when there were 20 people on the list reading, But definitely, I have always thought of having a duty to entertain them, and I see it as a sacred duty. Like, I've got to show up and give my best for these people, because if you take someone's attention for granted and you abuse it, they won't give it to you anymore. And that's a mistake that a lot of these people with more established brands have found out, that, they think that because I'm an A-lister, everyone's going to listen to my rants forever. And no, people tune out. You get boring to people. And so I have to show up and be interesting enough to hold someone's attention. I recognize that.
That's a really good point, because when I'm writing copy for my personal brand, I'm very intentional about not leaving a bad taste on anyone's mouth and do something that doesn't align with my brand. But when I was writing for clients, I'll be transparent about it. It's like I didn't care as much, because they don't particularly care about it either, right? It's like they would say to you, just write some broadcast emails and let's promote the event again. And in my mind, if I'm thinking about it, if I was doing it for myself, I'd be like, no, guys, like I have already promoted to this list 2 times this month. I've already made this pitch. Like, it's insulting if it was my brand to my audience to say this again to them when they're like, I'm not respecting their time. But because these big brands, they have the ads and they're rolling new people onto the list all the time, I don't think that they fully understand that, like, the people currently on the list are also reading those emails, so you maybe you're getting more sales, but you're only getting sales from those new guys that's seeing that for the first time. Those old leads could be entertained, could be nurtured, but you're just kind of burning a lot of them. And I'd have a few clients, because, as the years go on, there's, the wave of the industry, there'll be offers that'll take off and then kind of slow down. The offers that would slow down, you'd see the list would dry up within 2 months, which doesn't happen with your list. It's the exact opposite, right? It's like with these lists, you get all these ads, you get all these new subscribers, the sales come in. The second that they turn ads off and people stop joining the list, it's 1, 2, 3 months, and then it's like all the sales are gone. And that's been my experience seeing lots of accounts, and not just like, not just churn and burn, like brands, like proper brands, proper personal brands that have, like, let's say, 500,000 contacts, that list starts to die. The only time I didn't see that happen was when I was writing copy for Dan Locke's email list back in 2020, because every single email I wrote in his personality, and I did it more nurture. We didn't sell very often. We actually entertained that list. It was definitely entertainment. And that list kept going even when the ad account kind of did this. So I always remembered that and like kind of cross-referenced it with work I did later. And I just realized like, yeah, a lot of people treat the email list as just this sort of thing you just send the next promotional piece to. But it's like, no, every single person on there, if it was your own brand, you would be much more careful about what you say to them. And that's where I think there's like 2-3x returns for email with for copywriters who write for email clients. There's so much more money in the list.
It's a case where there's not one answer that suits everyone, because there are some brands for whom, if they have their traffic game dialed in, and they can replace the leads like that, then maybe it makes sense, because it's really hard. It's really hard to write good copy. I will say it takes a lot of my life to show up and make good copy and offers every month to the list. And maybe not every brand is capable of doing that, or maybe not every brand has a copywriter good enough to do that. And so a way of compensating is, well, we're going to get better at bringing new leads on to make up for the fact that we actually can't, achieve those results with the customers that we do have. And look, I'm not a fan of that approach, but I'm not going to say it doesn't work if the numbers add up and that's what you want to do. Personally, I will say that my list, it probably hasn't grown in the last year. I would be surprised. It might even be smaller. I don't know, because I have not really put any effort into growing it. We do a few ads every now and then, but for the most part, I just don't do any advertising. And so the list doesn't really tend to grow that rapidly or that much at all. But what I am really, really good at is maintaining and building relationships with the customers I do have. So even as the net subscriber amount might even have gone down. I don't even know my numbers. It might have gone down a bit over the last year, but revenue has been remarkably solid for the last few years. Subscribers, like paid subscribers, are solid. And, I am consistently doing good numbers because while my traffic and lead gen game is really not, awesome, my retention and relationship building game is really, really world class. And so there are different approaches to it, because I know that even in a brand, unless you can work really closely with the founder and have a lot of creative control, it's hard to do this right. It really is, because I've seen so many emails that copywriters are submitting for critique, and it's like they're working with, I don't know, a fitness brand, and the email's like, hey, ... If you've been struggling in the gym, ... And it's like, it's just so bland, so boring. I could have got it out of AI. There's no personality. That you read one of my emails and it's going to be a stunt. It's going to be a story that couldn't have been made up. It's like a scene of me in the kitchen with my wife, or it's like a stunt like I'm going to do later on today, where the whole email's in all caps and I'm just literally shouting at my reader for the whole time. There's always something crazy going on. And it would take
the chicken one.
Sorry?
The chicken one. He just had like chicken emojis the whole email.
That's right. Exactly.
That one got my attention because I wasn't reading you for a month, to be honest, because I was busy with stuff. And the chicken one got me back. I just saw these chickens. Like, what the hell is this? What is he doing? So I even sent it to my. Yeah, it was good.
I think that was an excerpt from my paid newsletter or something, wasn't it? I was like, this is an actual excerpt from my newsletter, and it was just like,
yeah, that's right,
300 chicken emojis, and there really wasn't there. Yeah, and so one of the things I did once was literally the email was just, I think it said, some people say that an email has to be really well written. It has to have structure, blah, blah, blah. And it can't just be the letter O 15,000 times in a row. Well, those people are wrong. And I spelled the word wrong with 15,000 letter O's. It was literally 15,000 letter O's. And that was the email. And then it was like, for tips that don't actually suck, buy my course. That was the email. And that went off. That went absolutely off. People freaking loved it. So it's just stupid. You are unlikely to be able to do that with most brands unless they have a lot of trust in you and unless you have a high level of creativity. And so one thing that, even I guess I've kind of matured my thinking on over the last few years is that several years ago, I would sit there and like poke fun at the different ways other people were doing stuff and say, that sucks. My way's more fun. It's better. And now I'm more like, look, there's just different ways to do it. There are
Mm.
plenty of kinds of people making money from email in all sorts of different ways. My way is one way of doing it, and I'm here to appeal to and to teach people who are interested in doing it the way that I like to do it, which is, really high touch, high effort, showing up, having fun, putting real humanity into the emails. But I'm open about the fact that it takes a certain kind of approach. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a commitment to do it, and you have to enjoy it. And that's fine for some people. By the way, can I just say, I like doing this. I love showing up at the keyboard and doing it. Yes, it's hard, but it's also really rewarding. And there are some people who do jobs that are hard, but they enjoy doing them. That's the whole point of working. You should do something you enjoy. And frankly, if you don't like writing, why are you a copywriter, right, in the first place? So we should like doing this stuff. But if you don't, and if maybe you are a little less creative for whatever reason, there are models out there under which maybe that can work as well, and there are a lot of brands and a lot of other copywriters you've interviewed might fall more towards that end of the spectrum where, they can get something out of AI that works for their model because it's more about get new leads, be really good at getting traffic and put an offer in front of them and they'll just keep replenishing that. I don't like that, but hey, I'm not going to say it doesn't work if the numbers work. It's just not how I like to do it. So I think it's important to recognize there's that big spectrum in how you can do this. And I'm out there just trying to show people a way of doing it that works for me, works for brands like mine, and I have a lot of fun doing.
One of the things I've definitely seen with the lists I've worked on, because I took a lot of inspiration from Matt Fury and some of these more personal brands that like to, when I say personal, I mean like the personal in the sense, like it's actually personal, like I know one-to-one high touch, personalized conversations, personalized copy. I would take those things and apply them to lists that I started to work on that didn't have like their own voice really. They kind of just sounded like everybody else and really start saying like, how can I inject that personality and inject that person's life and story and, character into the copy with these brands that weren't previously doing that because they just were, kind of pushing all this traffic onto the list. We got some serious returns. One of my clients, I remember them telling me, we're only going to do a 48-hour deadline sequence. We're going to push these guys to buy straight as soon as the webinar is over. Like 90% of our sales come within the first day of the webinar. Let's push hard. And I said, I don't really know if this deadline sequence is the objection that these ladies have. I think that there's a few questions that they don't have answered, which is why they're not buying. So anyway, we did the sequence. It didn't perform too well. Then we created a different sequence, which was much more personality, all focused on story, all focused on that lady's experience of, building an online business for like 7 days and 14 days. And they performed so well. So I've come to the point now where I think like, even if that's a different model where like, you've got a lot of traffic coming in and you want to just throw the copy out, if you can inject personality, if you can get some serious quality stories in there and you can actually genuinely bring a good energy to the email list, that's where you can make some serious money for clients that they don't even realize is in there. Because it's like, if I treat those leads on those lists well, it just compounds so much more because there's none of those people are like leaving, and the people that are leaving, they were never going to buy anyway, So yeah, I've seen insane results with this, like one list, we like 10x'd it. We went from like 20,000 a month to like 200,000 a month. And obviously the traffic went up too, but just adding that personality. And so I think many copywriters that, working with clients, many of the clients that I work with, I tell them, I say, read Daniel's emails because you got to inject personality into your client copy, especially if you're writing for personal brands. Even if it's not like even if you're not as much of an entertainer. I mean, they're all entertainers. Personal brands are all entertainers if you really think about it. All the internet personalities. It's just a different form of content. Like a lot of the time it is, especially with gurus, because they're not like sharing anything. It's mostly edutainment, And I think that's actually valuable in itself. I think giving people that one moment in a day, because their day is boring, their day is monotonous, they're in that 9-to-5 job, they're looking for inspiration. Just adding that little light to their day by having that nice email, that nice thing that they resonate with, that nice thing they relate with, to me is value, So
yeah, absolutely. And I think you need to have a really good working relationship with your client for things like that to pull it off. I wasn't saying, by the way, that there's ever a case where you shouldn't be entertaining, like that you should have boring emails if you can get a lot of traffic cheaply. I'm not a fan of it. I'm just saying like the ultra creative way in which I'm doing things is probably out of reach for a lot of brands. But just the fundamentals of doing good email, which is just storytelling and telling stories. You can tell stories based on other people's experience and stuff that, is kind of more evergreen. But the best stories are, taken from real life so people feel like they're there. And I know one guy inspired by me, I interviewed him, and he would talk about how he works with e-com clients, and he actually just gets them to send him voice notes like, oh, I was at the grocery store and this happened, and he will turn them into stories for their emails. So you just need to develop that kind of relationship with your client to be able to do stuff like that. So you can kind of at least co-create a voice with them. And that's when magic can happen.
Yeah. One of the clients I worked with in 2023, she would send me photos. She'd send me photos and she'd send me, stuff that she's up to. She sent me a photo of this bus that she used to live in for a few months. She sent me a photo of her and her kid on a ski trip. She'd send me voice notes of this and that and the other. And she'd just give me a lot of material I could use to integrate story into the email list. Whereas, the touch point with some clients is not like that. Some people don't build their business like that. They're like, this is why we delegated email kind of thing. That's on you. So yeah. What do you think the biggest mistake that copywriters make is when it comes to story entertainment type copy? I mean, maybe there's not one big mistake. Maybe there's a few things that come to mind. But what are some of the big things that you've noticed?
Yeah, that is a very broad question because I'm not a fan of most copy that I read. I'm trying to think of why. There's so many reasons. Now, one thing I see in a lot of people inspired by me, and so I'll start there because people who are, listening to this maybe do like my stuff and they're influenced by it, is they are so freaking confusing. Okay. And I have a very unique style of storytelling. I use a lot of onomatopoeia, which is like sound words like bam, smash, whatever, ding. I will interrupt words. Often I'll interrupt words and sentences and leave them unfinished. I have a very, very highly developed sense of how to do these things without confusing my reader. And it's taken a long, long time to develop it. And, I'm just naturally good at it too. You don't invent a style like that if, you haven't got some kind of talent. So I see a lot of people doing it and they don't have the sense for it. And they just randomly interrupt that someone's saying something and then the sentence stops and then bam, and then something else happens. And I'm like, what's going on here? Okay. And you have to understand there's a difference between the form of what I'm doing, which is, the interruptions and the stylistic touches and the onomatopoeia or whatever, and what shall I contrast with form? The skill required to make it make sense and know what my reader is thinking. And ultimately, that's what copywriting is all about. I would say, I wonder if I can sum it up this elegantly, that the single biggest predictor of how well you can write copy is how well you know what's in the reader's head as they're reading. That's the number one predictor of how good your copy is going to be, is how well do you know at every moment what your reader is thinking. The better you are at that, because that's, if you think about it, if you had that perfect, you're the mind reader and you can counter every objection as it occurs. You can make the sale. You know exactly what you need to say. So really, copy is successful in as much as you know what someone's thinking. And that is the skill that you need to have, whether you're writing persuasive copy or whether you're doing storytelling or entertainment. It's all the same. A good comedian has this skill as well. They know when the reader, when the listener is following, when they're getting confused, when they're losing them, when they need to make them laugh or whatever. And so that is something that I see a lot of people need to develop because they have no idea. It's not so much that they made the mistake of losing the reader. It's that they have no freaking idea that they're losing the reader. They have no idea. They only read their copy through their eyes. And what I do really, really well in my stories is I have a really good sense of what my reader is thinking and what detail I need to add where, how much suspense they're in, what they're suspecting. All these things are going on subconsciously. so that I am saying the right thing next. And like I said, that skill is just as relevant for storytelling as it is for persuasive copywriting. You need to know what someone's thinking. So that is an enormous mistake that I see. And I don't know how you develop that, because it's just something that's taken time to develop. I definitely wasn't a natural at this. I've had to spend a lot of time writing copy and reading copy. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned from is being a student of marketing that's done on me, and avidly studying and cataloging my own responses to copy that I read or marketing that I'm exposed to. And I would say that more than anything else has been how I've learned to be so good at it, because when someone sells to me, I take note of how I feel and how it made me feel, and I remember that. And so I'm really, really good at knowing when a reader doubts something, or is like thinks that's too good to be true, or is getting a little bit confused, because I study my own reaction to reading both good and bad copy and learning what to do and what not to do. And so I'd say if you want to develop that skill, that's the number one thing you can be doing, is reading both good and bad marketing and thinking, why is the good working on me and why is the bad repulsing me? And studying that so that you can do it, because it's just shocking to me. It's shocking to me how many people seem to have no conception of this based on the copy they write. Because I read it, I'm like, did this make sense to you? Probably it made sense to you, because I read one the other day that was obviously inspired by me, and it was this story of, I don't even know what the story was about, because I stopped reading after a few lines. It sucked so bad. But something about his dog came in, right? And I was reading, and bam, his dog comes in. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? But it's like, you know what happened there because you saw that scene, but your reader has no idea. So don't confuse them. So that's definitely an enormous mistake I see in storytelling and entertainment copy, is the inability to know what your reader needs to know or feel or hear, and when you're losing them. And that is one of my big strengths that I have cultivated, is knowing what a reader is thinking.
Being able to, it's like there's a lot of assuming readership. That's what I've often called it when I've been critiquing, is like this idea that you've written the sentence and you just assume that they're still following, and it's like, you've written this long sentence and you think that they've gone along with you, because when you're reading it for review, you're reviewing your copy, you're being intentional about it. Bro could be on the train while he's reading your email. He could be anywhere. Like, he's not necessarily 100% focused, and he's going to lose attention throughout the copy. I'll often read copy when I'm reviewing it for clients, and I'll just scroll. I don't even intentionally start reading. I just kind of scroll the page until when my eyes catch wherever the page is, and they're like, start at the top. I'm like, bro, I'm your reader right now.
No,
this is your reader.
That's a sign of a good coach. That's a sign of a good critic. I've done that before. That I was in a friend's copywriting group, and I made the mistake of giving someone a free copy critique. He posted his copy for critique, and I was being helpful, and I showed up and I was like, I said, I didn't read past your lead. You lost me at your lead. And everyone else giving him feedback was like, oh, this is really good, and I like how you had this, and I like how, and they deliberately read through it. And I said, I'm the only person who's given you useful feedback, because your readers are not trying to help critique your copy. They are reading what's in it for them. And you lost me at the headline. And he got really, really mad at me. And he's like, thanks for your unhelpful review or something. Just something really rude. I was like, screw you. I did the only helpful thing for you. But that's a fantastic point. And I've said that to students as well, is, I read their story, and you look at it on the page and it's just too many words. It's like, I don't even want to read that at all. And you can write copy in such a way. That's why you even need to see your copy in the format that it's going to go out, because sometimes you can write in one app. You write in one app, and then your sentence cadence is wrong for however you publish it, because the text wrapping's different. And it appears as suddenly a staccato thing of 3-line paragraphs or something, and people don't want to read it. Okay, so all of that is really, really important to separate the writing process from the reading process. It takes a really, really good copywriter to be able to assess their own copy through the reader's eyes while they're writing it. And that's why you have people who say, well, you should read your copy out loud or print it off and come back fresh. But sometimes I don't have the chance. Sometimes I don't have the luxury of that because, it's nighttime and I got to write the email and send it. Okay, so I've got to learn how to write it, knowing what my reader is thinking. I've developed that skill. Even still, sometimes I will come back to my copy and be like, I could have done that better. But, in general, I've developed the skill of viewing it how my reader's going to see it. So that's definitely a huge thing. You're right.
Yeah, I tell copywriters, don't give me context. Don't give me context. Why do I need context? It's like, imagine you have emails to your email list and you send an email out and it's like, at the top, it's like, here's the context. Like, here's the context. Like, bro, nobody's reading that, So I'll have that. I have copywriters where they'll give me this long context about the intention behind their copy. And I'm like, first of all, let me just read it as a reader, okay? Like, I don't care. Let me just read it. It doesn't matter. I can be the market. Like, if your first sentence is good enough, I can switch into that prospect because I know that I've got enough experience. I can become that for you. Don't worry about that. The other thing I notice when I review a lot of copy is, no, I cover that later. Just keep reading. This is like the main line. This is like my favorite line. I always say to people, yeah, just keep reading, right? Yeah, sure, okay. That's a great idea. Let me just keep reading and give you more feedback, So I always say that. It's like, well, if you have to tell me to just keep reading before I cover, I'm asking you a question. I'm saying, what's your proof? Oh, no, the proof's below. No, I'm asking you as the prospect, what's your proof? Why are you burying the proof? Why are you burying the lead? Why are you burying, and like literally, because recently I put together, over the last year, I've also got like a recurring subscription now where I teach people, copy in something called Copy Systems. And in Copy Systems, there's quite a few newer writers. The dojo is a lot more like six-figure writers, majority of writers in there, six-figure established writers. But Copy Systems has some newer writers. So I've been doing some critique calls in there over the last 2 months, just to kind of get the feel for like their writing and the level that they're at. And a majority of them just need to keep improving on their headlines and leads. Literally, I don't have any other feedback. Like 8 calls in a row. It's like, you lose me every single time I start reading. It's like, my feedback's done. Go and work through leads and go and work through your hooks and make them sharper. And, I don't even edit the copy, Daniel. I find like a lot of the time when I'm reviewing copy, it's like, why would I make edits to this? Because it's not at the point where it even makes sense to make an edit, because it's the idea that's missing. It's the energy. It's like, there's no point in touching this copy from an editing standpoint. And at first, when I first used to do that, I used to wonder if I was doing it wrong, because I'd see other copy coaches, they'd have this 150 comments on a Google Doc on all the feedback that they've given for this copy. And I look at my Google Doc and mine's just like, I just highlighted the first sentence and it's like, I'm lost, I'm bored. Like, can you change this? That's my feedback. So I used to think that that's there's something wrong there. But as I've come to learn, like that's how the reader's experiencing the copy. So it might be the best feedback that they're going to get,
Yeah, it's... I'm chuckling because, number one, I had a lot of experiences with Scott Pape just returning copy to me like that. It was like, I'm not reading. This sucks. I'm like, could you at least give me feedback on the rest? It's like, no, the reader's not getting to it. I know that when I used to do copy coaching in 2020, and I stopped it, I hate it too much. I would feel obliged to give copy feedback on everything. So I would go through the whole thing, even if it sucked. And by the way, most of the time it did. It was just painful. I can't do the copy coaching thing because I can't deal with every week you give someone feedback and then this next week they write the same kind of copy again and again and again. I'm like, oh frick, I can't do it. So I have respect for the copy coaches who can do that. Definitely there is a lot of value in the hard truth kind of style that you're doing there. I was not able to be that mean to people and be like, this sucks, go and rewrite it, because it was like their one review for the week or 2 weeks. But yeah, it definitely teaches you lessons better. I know that when you get it back and they're like, I'm not even reviewing this because this sucks so much. You need a better headline.
I mean, one of my copy coaches, my first copy coaches, I remember I sent him an email for review. I thought I'd really done a good job with this email. It was for some B2B. It was for a slightly different prospect than the usual prospect. We're talking to more sophisticated leads. So he highlighted the whole document from start to finish, and he just puts in caps no, and sent it back to me for feedback. So like I get the whole piece back, and the whole thing just no, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And he didn't give me any feedback besides that, and I actually think that was some of the best critique I got, because I think the ability to self-diagnose what the issues are in your copy removes all those bottlenecks of progress. Because if you're sitting once a week waiting for a copy critique, right? If you, let's say, really want to get better. I mean, even if you have an A-list coach, let's call them an A-list, right? A-list coach. Even if you have really strong copy coaches, you don't have a daily cadence with majority of them. Unless you're working in like Agora or some in-house position with a copy chief, you're not getting that constant feedback. So if you can self-diagnose and you're just honest with yourself and you say, I read this lead, I need to be honest with myself. I know it could be better. I know I'm not really feeling anything here. You can improve at copy without having to wait for your next, critique. And that's what that forced me to do, looking at that and not knowing why he doesn't like it and having to think about why would my copy coach not like this based on what I've learned from him before. And then I sent him another email and it was like a lot better. And last year I sent him something and it was so funny. Last year he highlighted the whole thing and said yes with exclamation mark at the end. So I was like, that's like my number one testimonial for myself personally. Is like I went from no to yes, like that was my, that's how I knew I'd made it,
There is definitely something, and I don't know that I've ever had it. Scott was so hardcore. I don't know if he ever was like, this is perfect to me, but which I appreciated, by the way. I appreciate it. I would never sat on my laurels. But I have given that feedback to people before, and it's a good feeling even as the coach to say like, this is amazing. I wouldn't change anything. It was like I wrote it myself. So that's funny.
Now I want to take this to a little bit more of a charged topic. Okay. I thought about this before. You ban certain countries from your email list. And you also say that most people who don't speak English as a first language should just forget it, if I'm correct, right? So what is this? What do you think of this? Like, what is the actual perspective on this here? Besides, like the personality side of it to create some energy, because that there are people that are coming onto your list from those countries with VPNs, and they're kind of finding ways to sneak onto the list and pretend that they're from America. And
I do check every lead manually. Yeah. I say that.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about what I do because I don't want to invite people to try, to try and game me.
Yeah, to try and beat the system. Yeah.
But I will say that I catch people. I know when they're trying, and there may be some very elaborate fakes going on there, but they have to be very, very elaborate to get past me. I will say that. Look, it came from conviction. Okay, it just I have been doing this for a long time, and number one, it came from data. Like I had so many of my problems came from the same few countries. Okay, and I don't know if I actually list them anymore on my opt-in page. It was Nigeria, Pakistan, Vietnam were just three huge, like just the ratio of good customers to problem leads was terrible compared to other countries, and because there were active copywriting communities, in those countries and I was popular with them, I kept getting recommended, and so I was getting all these leads they wouldn't buy. In many cases, they couldn't buy. So my app actually didn't support those countries. So I literally cannot sell to leads from some of these countries. So there's a very business constraint to this, by the way, because if you are sending tempting, irresistible sales pitches for something that someone can never buy day after day, what do you think they are going to try and do? It's an info product. What are they going to do? They try and pirate it, okay? And I hate piracy. I just absolutely detest it. And I don't know if you would have been around at this time when I've had some, rather high profile battles with pirate sites. I've actually taken some down myself. I actually infiltrated them. I'll send you an article later on that I wrote how I infiltrated a pirate site and shut it down.
Nice.
So I've had some,
because I've been getting some pirates now as well. Actually, I'm getting tagged and people are like, oh yeah, here's your whole course on this website. And I'm like, oh great.
So, by the way,
A whole
this
year
is
of my
why I
life.
now have the policy, which you may have seen, is that for any new stuff that hasn't been pirated, like the stuff that has been pirated, I'm paying a piracy firm to take it down. Okay, and they're
Hmm.
scanning. But that costs money. That costs literally $100 per product per month. That's not cheap. That's not cheap at all.
No,
And people are
no,
like, oh,
not at
piracy
all.
doesn't
Mm.
cost you money. It does. That's money that I could be spending on my kids' education. So, I for new stuff that hasn't been pirated, I'd rather it didn't get pirated. And so I have these things like you have to tell me, you have to prove to me that you are sincere if you want my training. And so I have that. I have access delays baked into stuff. It's kind of back to old school where you didn't get something immediately when you bought it. I've got a 24-hour delay. I'm going to look at you, see who you are. I'm going to follow up for more info if I need it. It may be something you consider if you hate it. A lot of people just eat piracy as the cost of business. I just can't really do that. But anyway, I was having a lot of this kind of pirate activity. I was having, people just with really, really bad English. And that was the other thing too. I believe in helping people. And there are some people that you would just, I wish I had the examples here. Like there was one specific email that triggered this from me, that triggered my ban years ago. And it was just the worst grammatically incorrect sentence I'd ever seen in my life. And I just remember sitting there staring at it and I was like, you cannot be a copywriter. You can't write. You're illiterate. And yet you're sitting there because you watch some guy's video on YouTube saying, here's how to make 10K a month. You can't. Like, you're in dream world and you're only listening to people in copywriting groups and on forums who are just lying to you. I'm going to break through the dream bubble and say what no one else will say to you because it's politically incorrect. You can't be a copywriter because you can't even write. And, when I first talked about this, it was obviously super duper controversial. Like, it just went nuts. And I was like, oh, because we were talking before about how, I was quite controversial. I was like, oh, I've got a principled stand that makes everyone angry. I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I did play into it a lot. I used to play into it a lot, because people got so upset about it. And it's something I believe in. I'm not just doing it to stir up trouble. Like, I don't care if leads from those countries are like, screw Daniel Throssell, we won't follow him. Great. That's my goal too. Glad we're aligned. Okay, so I didn't care about that. It worked very, very well for me to talk about that. These days, I don't really make a big deal of it anymore. Because I've long since banned them. But it came from a conviction that I can't help these people. Now, I know there are exceptions out there. I know there are people from these countries who can and will go on to succeed. In fact, some of my customers are from those countries. They're still on my list. I had some buy from me today at $1,000 offer. Okay, so I do have leads, and I know there are plenty of no-hopers in the Western world as well. Okay, it's just a numbers thing, really. There's just the proportions are so different that I'm optimizing my business for a lot of things, but a big one is life enjoyment. Okay, I just don't want to deal with the hassle of leads that are causing me problems, that don't buy stuff, that pirate, that send me stupid replies, and I don't want to be wasting their time. I don't want to be one of many people who are telling them, just buy my course and you're going to make it. And I actually always had an issue with that these guys would always take money from these people, promising them success when they weren't likely to ever find it. And I just didn't feel right with that. So it was both a marketing decision and a principled decision that I don't want to sell to these people. And my view was always, there will be people out there that are unfairly targeted by this, and maybe my policy is going to light a fire in them, and they're going to like give me the finger and say, screw you, Daniel Throssell. One day I'm going to prove you wrong, and I'm going to make it, and then I'm going to write you an email. I'm going to say, haha, I did what you said I couldn't. I succeeded. Take that. And if that happens, I always said, I'm going to reply and say, I'm so happy for you. And I'm going to mean it. It's like, because I gave you the fire to succeed, which you needed. Okay, and that's the way I see it. There's no harm in being too hard on someone. Everyone else is going to promise you the world and riches and ask for your money. Okay, I'm just going to be the one who tells it to you straight and be like, I don't think you have a chance. So I'm not going to send you my emails. And honestly, from my end, just speaking purely selfishly now, okay, it's made my business so much smoother. I cannot tell you how much smoother it is. Like, yeah, just knowing that the leads are all, I don't have to worry about them so much. I don't have to deal with frivolous requests. The amount of help desk requests that we don't have to deal with anymore from like, oh, my phone doesn't work with the app. It's just gone way down. The quality of my list is so high because all these leads are generally coming from the, richer countries, the ones that you target on Facebook. By the way, this is what everyone does. When you target your ads on Meta or whatever, it's like you're doing exactly what I do, target my marketing to certain countries. So I always laughed. I was like, you're all hypocrites. People who criticize me is like, you're doing the same thing. Even people from Pakistan, if they're working with a client, they're going in there and they're not targeting Pakistan in their ads. So, a lot of people.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And it's not even just those countries. Sometimes there are just copywriters, like you said, right? That just certain people just, this is not the thing. And they came in from some guru, they came in from some 10K course, and copywriting is a means to an end. And I often say that. I often say to copywriters, like when I start working with them, when it's like my mentorship, it's like, what is your goal? Like, why are you doing this? Because if they don't mention somewhere that they love writing, I usually tell them like, okay, you got to get into some marketing operation position fast if you don't like writing, because this is not going to be energetically sustainable for you. It's not, you're not playing into your strength, There was a copywriter. There's one copywriter that comes to mind when I think of, just in my heart, I was like, this guy is not gonna, this guy, he can't be a copywriter. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, doesn't matter how much feedback for years. And it wasn't actually one of my clients. It was actually just somebody that I just happened to be in a different community helping. Just, it didn't matter. Didn't matter my feedback, Daniel. Like, every single week for like 2 years straight, this guy would show up, which was the hard part. Is just show up, submit copy, and I'd give the same feedback. I'd go deeper. I'd try different angles. I'd try different ways to reach him. And eventually, I think I did just tell him, I said, I think either you're not completely present with this work and there's something else in your life that's, like, that's the main priority and that's why this is coming out the same way. Or maybe you should consider something else, because you've been struggling with this for years, and I would hate to see you struggling for 2-3 more years, and just go down the same rabbit hole when there's other things. And actually, one of my clients, we had this conversation where he's actually pretty decent. He's a pretty good writer. I'd say like 7 out of 10 skill set. He would say the same. But we just said, you're taking so much energy from this. This is not giving you anything. You don't really like the process. Why don't you go and become a director in client success? Because you're much better at managing people. Go work in an info business in a different department. And he did it. Like, he did it 2 years ago. He did that. And he's never been happier, and he makes really good money. So sometimes it's like, don't just do this for the sake of doing it. Like, go do something that actually aligns with your strength. I think more copywriters need to hear that. And I think especially, copywriters that don't speak English as the first language. I mean, there's like Ivaldo Albuquerque, and there's like a lot of really good writers that they don't speak English as their first language, but the ones that don't speak English as their first language that are particularly struggling to communicate. Oh, look, I got to fly too. I got to fly too. It's just not worth it, man. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I completely agree. Ivaldo's name came up so much when I used to talk about this. Everyone's like, what about Ivaldo? I'm like, yeah, great. What about it?
Yeah. What about him? Yeah.
I just, good luck. Like, the thing is, so few people are going to make it in this craft anyway. And the thing with copywriters is they're the flakiest bunch of people I have ever met. I've never met a craft where it's like, just one day you're like, hey, I'm going to be a copywriter. I'm changing my whole life. I change all my bios and everything. I'm a copywriter now. And then 6 months later, it's like, I've decided to pivot in a different direction. As someone who sells to copywriters, it's the most annoying thing. Because, people join my newsletter. They're like, oh, I'm with you for life now. I know you've got your once in, once out policy, and I'm going to be with you for life. And then 6 months later, it's like, I just decided copywriting's not my thing anymore. I was like, oh, wow, what a freaking surprise. I would never tell that was coming. And so people
Yeah,
aren't
yeah.
highly committed to this craft anyway. That's why I'm just so cynical. Like, oh yeah, I love copywriting. It's my dream. It's like, no, it's not. You just want to make money online, you know?
Mm.
That's fine. That's cool. I wanted to make
Just
money
be
online
honest.
too. Everyone wants to make money online. But copywriting is a craft, okay? Just because you can make money online doesn't mean it's the way to make money online. If you're not a great writer, if you don't understand marketing and selling and storytelling and other people and persuasion, then it's not for you. And I just don't see, it's just kind of amusing to me that I'm one of the only people who will tell these terrible writers. I'm not limiting it to people with English as their second language, by the way. I think that's just generally the case is a very, very high proportion of people. And I'm talking like terrible English, not you just make native, like non-native mistakes. Like that can be okay, especially in a personal brand. But when you have terrible English, I don't see anything wrong with telling those people, look, it's hard enough for the natives with really good English, where English is not a barrier. It's hard enough for them to stay with it. Like, it's just so much harder for you. Just go and do something else that you enjoy. Go and do something with your life that you will enjoy rather than beating your head against a wall. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah. But there is a large amount of, let's call them copywriters. I would say that they're more fans of the craft than they are actual copywriters. And I was talking to Mr. Colin Theriot about this, Cult of Copy. And he was kind of saying the same thing. It's like there's a large amount of people that will join the Facebook group that he runs, and they don't really want to be professional writers. They like the idea. It's an exciting idea, but they're kind of just more, it's like a collectible, or it's like some sort of hobby, and they're like watching from the outside. Do you find a lot of those guys find their way onto your list as well? Do you find a lot of hobbyists on your list?
I think copywriting in general attracts a lot of people like that. I think it's best summed up by what I was saying before about how flaky people are. Those people are like that. They tend to get very attracted by some of my offers, and then they end up canceling the subscription. So yeah, there is a lot of them. Although I would say of the copywriting brands, I probably attract, the highest quality because of my declared non-focus on beginners. And because of that, to come into my world, you generally have to be at a higher level, because I'm making it so hard. I'm not out there posting content on YouTube or Twitter. I don't have stuff that beginners are going to find. So you have to be committed to the craft, and then you have to like kind of hear about me by referral almost to join my list. Because of that, I generally get higher quality leads. I'd say people who are more committed to the craft. And I say it all the time too. I repeatedly say I'm not the first person you should learn from. You're just going to make mistakes if that happens.
Yeah, I love it, man. I resonate with a lot of this, and it makes sense. And it's nice to see the other side of, the emails, because I read it on the email side and I get a lot of insights into, how you see things, but just seeing it from that other perspective has actually been really interesting. So I want to take this one last place before we jump off today, because I know a lot of copywriters, they don't really know what the state of the industry is, and they don't really know where things are going. And I don't know if anybody knows exactly where it's going, but one thing's for sure, like, you've really taken this craft to the highest level, and you aspire to like take it to like the, I know that you really love copywriting. I can just tell you just love copywriting. What is the future? Like, is this, I don't even want to make it an AI question, because I just don't believe in AI being actually that good. I just don't think it's that strong. But like, maybe it's like the perception of copywriting combined with AI, combined with, like, what's your general thoughts of where copywriting's going over the next few years?
I know you have a recent interview with the big thumbnail, "Copywriting is Dead." Someone sent it to me from someone whose shtick that certainly is. I won't talk anymore about that. But look, I think that all that stuff comes from a very mistaken, well, not mistaken, because the people saying it know. They know this. They're just saying it for clout, right? That copywriters just sit down and write. That's never been the job of a copywriter. It's never been the job of a copywriter to be like, I'm just going to write words. Like, you've always had to understand a product and understand the market and understand the business and come up with solutions and come up with thoughts and ideas and campaigns and offers. That has been the job of the ad man from time immemorial, from when Claude Hopkins was writing his book. His job was never to just have a client come and say, I need an ad in a newspaper for this. Like, no, he's a problem solver. The business says, we are having a business problem, and the advertising copywriter, the copywriter has to say, here's how I think words can solve that problem. But words have never been the primary job. They are the means of solving the problem. And when you see it that way, you see nothing's changed. Nothing's changed at all. Businesses will always exist, and businesses need to communicate with their customers, and good businesses will have relationships with their customers, and relationships can only be formed through words. And when you see that, it's like, which of the pieces have changed? Yes, AI can write some copy. AI can't manage relationships. And it's not even that AI is not capable of doing that, which, by the way, I don't think it is. I think it's, and even people who were very pro AI a couple years ago, I've seen them are saying that, oh, wow, well, it's plateauing a little bit, okay? And this was my thing, that I was like, yeah, what if the idea that it's just going to keep getting better and better isn't true, by the way? But anyway, it's not even about it. Let's say the AI was good enough. The AI was so good, it was as good as me. It was my equal. It has a flaw. It's not a human. And people don't want to listen to things that weren't created by humans. It's that simple. Even if AI is as good as or better than us, it cannot be a person. And people do not like to consume AI-generated content. Ask any person, do you love watching movies with CGI? And they'll say no. Now, they might actually enjoy watching CGI, but when you point out something is CGI, that it loses a bit of charm. That's why you like something like, what's his name? The guy who does Tenet and all the credit, Christopher Nolan, okay? And he doesn't use CGI. And people are like, wow, that's so cool, okay? People don't want to listen to deepfakes. If you are listening to a podcast and someone says, do you know this is AI? They'd be like, oh, why am I listening to that, okay? People don't want to form relationships with AI. It's not that AI isn't good enough to fool them. Maybe it is, but once they know it's AI, they're not interested in giving their attention to it. And that's why there is a revulsion of AI-generated content. There's a push away from that, and people say, I don't want to read all this AI slop on the internet. Because of that, I believe AI fundamentally can never take over that job of the copywriter, which is the relationship building aspect of it, okay? And so I just don't see this huge change, because the copywriter's job has never just been to write the words, and it never will be to write the words. It's always been to come with an understanding of marketing and strategy and entrepreneurship and entertainment and storytelling and all these things. And a good copywriter has always had to know these things. And so all the reasons people are saying for copywriting is dead, it's like, none of them are new. There's just because you can get fast words out of an AI, guess what? You could get fast words out of a cheap Upwork freelancer before, okay? What's changed? They're a bit faster and they're a bit cheaper. But that's a difference of scale, not a difference of... It's a quantitative difference, not a qualitative difference. And so I am not doom and gloom on copywriting as an industry. There are always going to be businesses that need to sell things. Those businesses will always need to sell things. Words are always going to be the thing that sells the things. And so if you understand how to write the words that make sales and build relationships, then there's going to be a way for you to have a job and add value. And it's as simple as that for me. Really it is.
Yeah, this message has been around for a long time. I was talking to somebody else the other day. I don't remember who it was, but he was saying the same thing, and he's been in the industry for Andrew Gould. I was chatting to Andrew Gould the other day, and Andrew was mentioning that, these messages that, copywriting is dead, or like this, you should do this other model, or you should do this model, or you should do this model. Those angles were being used 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's like it's not a new concept. It's just been repackaged with the latest technological advancements, right? And I love writing, so I just don't really... I've always told my my clients and people that follow me, like, I do use AI occasionally to help me with organizing information, but I don't really use it for any of the writing process, just because personally for me, I didn't do it because I actually liked the writing process. Like whether it was more effective or not, I actually found more joy and fulfillment from actually just writing my copy myself. I just enjoy writing. I love writing, and I just want to,
I'll just give you a concrete example. So, I started this interview by pouring myself a dram of whiskey, right? And I'll just show your viewers what's hiding inside the cupboard there, right? Sorry, I just realized I walked away from the microphone. Usually I have AirPods on. I'm not used to dealing with a mic. So I actually get this. There's this club. It's called the Whiskey Club, right? And every month they send me a new bottle, and they write some of the greatest copy I ever get. Every month they're selling me on a new bottle and telling me what I've got. So like this is one, this might have been the one that I just poured actually. This exclusive release is an ode to our huge whiskey community and a leveled up liquid love letter to every member who wrote in asking if we could recreate our May 24 Whiskey of the Month. We knew beating our last club exclusive was a tall order. It scored a near perfect 99 out of 100 points and was shortlisted for World's Best Scotch Single Malt after all. Luckily, we're always up for a challenge, and we'd already started working on the follow-up. So they have this story. They tell me the story of how they created it. Then they'll start selling the whiskey in all its non-chill filter glory, without added color. This is the king of Speyside's DNA in a bottle. This is Aberlour. The nose is layered aromas of rich blackcurrant jam, juicy apricot, pink lady apple, vanilla, and poached pear. The palate, an incredibly creamy palate of heather honey, milk chocolate, orchard fruits, and gingerbread. Okay? Word painting. So good. Every month, they send me something like this. This is how this business makes its money. By doing this, these words create so much value, because without all the words, all the marketing aside, what are you getting? Alcohol, colored alcohol in a bottle. It's the words that add value. It's the words that build a relationship. This letter is signed by Bertie, M, and the team. So they're building a relationship. They're building characters. They're adding value to the product they send me with the word painting and the storytelling. They create desire. They sell me other bottles of whiskey. And I'm just using this as one example of a business. Is AI ever going to replace the need for them to do that? Not will AI ever do that. I mean, they could, and it would suck, but this business will always have a need, if it wants to make as much money as it does, for copy. And multiply this by how many millions of businesses are in the world. They all need copy. Now, it doesn't mean every one of them is going to hire a copywriter. Some of them are going to use AI to write it. Some of them are going to write it themselves. But copywriting to sell stuff is never going away. It's never going to change. And so that's why I don't really worry about the doom and gloom stuff, because as long as there are businesses around, stuff like that is going to be necessary.
Yeah, humans buy from humans. People buy from people, So it doesn't even if AI gets to the point where it sounds like it's not AI, the second somebody knows that that's not a real relationship, it's done. Mm-hmm. So all it takes is one email that sounds like AI, and I think you can. I mean, there are people I used to follow, like marketers that I used to, I still respect them and what they've done, but I don't pay attention to their copy anymore because they started to use AI, and like all it takes is two posts on Facebook from particular people, a couple of emails. I was like, oh, okay, so you're using AI. So in other words, the relationship's it doesn't matter to you. You'd rather.
That's how I see it.
That's too. What it tells me. It's like the second you have the AI in the copy, you're saying that our relationship doesn't matter. I'm just money for you. That's what it feels like.
I completely agree, and that I've said it in an email recently, is that if I expect my readers to put in the attention to write it, why would they be okay if I didn't put in the effort? Sorry, if I expect them to show up with the attention to read it, why would they be okay if I didn't put in the effort to write it? It's got to go both ways. If I want them to read it, I got to write it to them. Otherwise, I'm demanding their attention for free. That's disrespectful. So yeah, I completely agree. I just don't see AI as a real threat to that kind of copy.
I think it's going to be great in 2026. I genuinely think that a lot of these businesses that have decided to use AI, that are like leaders in the marketing world, that have now tried to adopt it, they're finding like it's negatively impacted them. And a lot of businesses are actually just like, oh no, like going back. There are so many business owners that I know that have sent out apology emails and try to like recover their lost trust, and people that have gone from all for AI to now suddenly trying to backpedal, pretending that they didn't have any AI perspective. Like, oh, it's just a tool, right? It's like, yeah, right. That's like exactly what you said 6 months ago, right? Like when you told everybody that we're all getting, not even in the copywriting space, like just business owners and marketers, that suddenly they start talking about human relationships. It's like, oh, that's interesting. But anyway, Daniel, it's really been a pleasure, and I was really looking forward to this interview, because when I first started the channel, I was like, gonna interview enough people that you'll jump on the show and share your insights. Because I would definitely say, like, of all the email copy I read, yours is just top notch. It's like best copy in the game. People these days, there's not a lot of email lists where you can actually get good copy. It's a lot of just like lazy writing and like copywriters that just so it's like, if you want to actually get some good copy, read some good copy, if Daniel will let you, join his list. That's it. I was about to ask, where is it? Persuasivepage.com.
Persuasivepage.com. If you can navigate through the 3,000 hurdles that are in your way, you can treat yourself to some great copy.
And then you won't, once you read, you won't be able to stop, and you'll end up like me, because what what happened to me? I got Throsselled. I got Throsselled. I joined one of your things. I'll try not to spoil anything, but like I saw one of your emails. I don't remember which one it was, but it was really good. I think you were selling bullets. I think it was your bullets newsletter, because I'm a massive, I love bullets. Bullets is like my thing, So I saw this, I was like, all right, Daniel's really good. I want bullets, So I joined Adventures in Copyland, and then there's just one line that hit me. I'm telling you this one sentence. Then I bought all of your stuff. I just bought everything. I spent thousands. and thousands of dollars. Just racked up the credit card.
That line was like the turn-up line, wasn't it?
You know what the line was? Yeah, the line was
wasn't it
that was a warm-up.
Not recommended or something like that.
No. It wasn't that one. That one was good too, but it was and that was just a warm-up offer.
Oh,
because it was in the upsell. I just like cracked up so hard. I was like, this is that, congrats, that was a warm-up. Now comes the real offer. I was like, all right, you got me, I'll buy everything. Because that's good, like you can actually address, this is the thing, it's like you're addressing, you're talking to copywriters, you're addressing the thing. Like we're calling it for what it is, and I think people are too scared to do that sometimes. It's like Persuasive Page, perfect example, right? It's like, let's just call it for what it is, right? I love it. No, it's fun, You got good stuff. I enjoy everything that you put out, Daniel. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, people will go and join your list and go and have some fun. And yeah, I'll chat with you soon, man. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me on.